Hi, this is Siofra Bradigan, and this is Siofra's Magic Alcove. So, my mind's been racing, jumping from place to place in my head, trying to decide exactly what it is I wanted to talk about today. And so, there have been a lot of thoughts running and rolling around in there in my noggin. And there's so many different things we can talk about. There's so many potential subjects. So I'm not sure what I'm going to call this exactly, but I've been thinking about the nature of power and magic itself and what it really is. The live stream definitely brought up some thoughts about that, and it's like we're complicated. We all have these complex things that are going on in us all the time. So bear with me as I figure out what we're doing. Now, in our society, we have, society has specific definitions that they have presented for telling someone that they have power. So, if we're a regular person and we're just sort of absorbing the cultural norms and that kind of thing, then power is usually described or defined by external things. So, money, accumulation of and having of, is considered part of power. Prestige, people know who you are, they care about what you do, they're afraid of you, you have control over bunches of people, they have to do what you tell them to, so the idea of a leader, a ruler, a king would be the pinnacle of that type of power, at least in our current model. And that definition of power is sort of blended with our idea of self-worth. So if we can't or don't, for whatever reason, accumulate wealth, have a position of authority, have power over other people, of course, this goes back to the power over model, then we aren't worth as much. Our self-worth is sort of kind of bound up with that whole notion of external power. So the kind of job we can get, the kind of job we have, the amount of pay we have, the size of our house, the number of accumulated items that our income allows us to have, gives us the status, and tells the rest of the world that we are someone important, someone of note. So, how we dress and what we wear, what we can buy as far as that sort of thing goes. It's like certain items, we've given prestige to these items. So if we see someone wearing those things, the assumption is that they are a person of power. It's ironic because when it comes to magical power, none of those things actually matter. It has absolutely nothing to do with reality. The universe doesn't care what our status might be in a societal hierarchy. And the power that we wield as witches, pagans, magicians, whatever we call ourselves, the authority that we have with the universe and with spirit beings and other planes of existence is not dependent upon or reflected by that external form of power and prestige. It doesn't matter. It's of absolutely no consequence whatsoever. The only real value it has for a witch, a magician, or whatever, if that's the path you're following, is allowing you to have the time um, to do the work on yourself, the work with your corner of the universe, with your part of the earth, with the beings that inhabit your reality. Um, and if you have enough income, that generally equates with having more time, which is more valuable than money, to pursue, explore, and to do magic and self-exploration. So, as you know, since we're coming into this self-reflective time, at least, in the northern hemisphere, it's one of the reasons why I have these thoughts this time of year, because, that is definitely a thing. And it's interesting to me what some people consider um, certain personality traits and whatever considered not valuable or a sign of weakness, because we're using this artificial criteria to determine what is valuable, right? So I consider that kindness is a superpower. That genuine kindness is probably one of the most important things that you can nurture when it comes to self-development and becoming a better witch, pagan, magician, druid, shaman, doesn't care what the magical path is. And that's one of the reasons why there's so many empaths that are in the field, because empaths, as a rule, have a propensity towards understanding where someone else is coming from, and that understanding of how someone else feels leads to compassion, and compassion leads to kindness. And so, I believe in boundaries, and I believe that of all the things that I talk about, boundaries are probably the most important. Because without them, you can't define yourself, you can't decide who you are, you can't define your relationship with the universe, and these are the choices and the things that make you you. And I think that my idea of kindness is not necessarily the standard, uh, because a lot of the standard form of kindness that I see is a way of subjugating the self, making the self not important at all. And this is about balance. It's not about, becoming a Catholic saint and devoting yourself to other people and eating bread and water and praying all the time. That's not what I'm talking about. Because having a balanced life is also part of this process. Um, a lot of people, when they first get involved in this, they're not sure what makes a person a witch. And we've talked about this a few times. but it isn't the number of ceremonial or magical objects you have, although they can be fun and nice, and I certainly enjoy the ones that I've gotten or made because they serve a purpose for me. Um, it's not how many books you've read or how much piecemeal knowledge you might have, even if it's encyclopedic knowledge of all things supposedly under the sun. Those are just, they're in the magical world, in my opinion, the same as the trappings of power I was just talking about in regular reality. So one of the traps of study has to do with becoming lost in the minutia. Apparently, I have a dry throat today. You get lost in the details of what's out there, what's possible. And the details are superfluous, just like the trappings of wealth don't have any actual meaning except the meaning we give to them. The education and raw data isn't the kernel, the focus. Having an open mind is another one of the things I consider a superpower. There's a story about I think a Tao master, maybe a Sufi master. Well, no, not the Sufis. So anyway, so somebody wants to come to this person that has all this knowledge and experience and wants to learn, and they have all the trappings of wealth and power in the world. They think very highly of themselves and their ability and their acumen and their intelligence and their worth and all this other stuff based on this criteria that we use. And they sit down across from the master, and the master can see that this person is completely and totally full of themselves and, quite proud of who they are. And he starts pouring the cup of tea. And he keeps on pouring the tea, and the teacup is full and it overflows and it comes out all over the place. And he keeps on pouring the tea, and the person is like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? And he keeps on pouring the tea, hoping that the individual across from him is actually going to get the message. And of course, the message is pretty simple. If you're already full, there's no room for new things. And that's the thing. It's like, that's why I say having an open mind is a superpower, because if you already think you know everything and you're, just super smart, super educated, etc., then you don't have room for new information. So that's one of the reasons why humility is one of the tenets, as it were. The right kind of humility. It doesn't mean, like we said previously, becoming a saint and denigrating yourself and not having anything at all. It's not about asceticism, going with just a sheet, leaving everything you have and walking and making the world take care of you. It's not about that. But it's about that that knowing inside of you that you don't know everything. And if you haven't reached that point in your studies where you've learned a lot and you still know that you don't know everything, then you're the full cup. And that's the thing, is like, I think one of the reasons why I resonate with a lot of you guys out there, is because you sense my authenticity, and authenticity isn't something I have to try and remember to be. That's the whole point. I am who I am. I know who I am. I know what I can and I cannot do. I know what I know and do not know. And it's okay if I don't know something. And it's okay if I haven't learned something. There's only so much in a single life that I can learn and spend my attention to. And so that's my decision, is on what things I will spend attention on and what will I get out of it. So you all know, or most of you at least at this point know, that I had a pretty rough childhood and was pretty seriously abused, and that went into adulthood for quite some time. And whenever someone did something to me that was horrendous and hurtful, what I got out of it was that I would never do that to someone else because I knew how it felt. And that's compassion. That's what I mean by compassion. That level of understanding. It's not like the universe was mean to me with these people in it, so I'm going to be mean to them and get back at the universe, which is just silly. It's sometimes instinctive but pointless in the end, because then you just become the thing that you don't like, and that's how you become the thing you don't like, by being reactionary instead of being responsive. My second husband, Rick, would start a fight of some kind and just be very verbally abusive to me, call me names, tell me, put me down. I don't really remember any of them anymore because I'm not in that space, but I remember it happening, as it were. And he was trying to goad me into reacting and yelling back and all this other stuff. And when I suddenly realized that that was what was actually going on, and of course knowing how much it hurt me to have him say those things to me, I chose not to react, and I wouldn't participate in it, which infuriated the living daylights out of him. He felt that that was a comment I was making, a slap in the face kind of thing, telling him what an a-hole he was being, by not being one back, which I thought was so strange. Like, there's just certain things I can't understand and can't comprehend, and I guess that's a good thing in some ways, but still, it's like, it's very similar to that thing we were discussing on the live show, that people who are addicts of whatever the addiction might be, whether it's a behavioral thing or a physical thing, when you've been a part of their life and then you suddenly stop the behavior that they've been in, then they start to feel defensive and angry because your existence is like a statement from the universe about what they're doing, even if it's nothing to do with them at all. So, and I think that kindness and compassion is the true test of power and strength, because it takes a lot of strength to resist just regurgitating back what you get. It means, if you're not doing that, it means that you're choosing to become a conscious participant in your own existence, and you're not just parroting everything that's out there. You're giving it thought. And it doesn't mean lying. I mean, some lying, I can lie with the best of them if I have to. If my safety is at risk, I feel no compunction to tell the truth. I am generally an extremely honest and open person. But if I'm in a certain kind of situation, whatever I think I need to say in order to get out of it, I will. And I don't feel guilty about it. There's these artificial tests that we put ourselves through, or rulers of, if we fail in this one thing, then we're like a miserable failure in everything or something. I don't know. It's all pretty crazy to me. But and really, when it comes to it, the power of magic comes from the heart. It comes from being able to feel. So, feeling, genuine feeling, that's that connection. You can't connect to the universe through the mind. It's too separate. It wants to analyze and catalog and separate things. When Ian and I were talking about the subject in general the other day, he brought up the idea of, like, you could take a sheet of music and you could analyze the notes, you could analyze the key, you could analyze the instruments that were used to play it, you could analyze different versions that were played by different people and how they were similar and how they were different. And you could do this for a long time, but if you can't sit and listen to the music, it doesn't mean anything. It's just the mind picking apart, trying to find correlation, detail, whatever. It doesn't go to the meat, the power of music or the power of the song, whatever it is. In order to embrace magic and the world, you have to be in it and a part of it, not separate from it, which is why I talk about the heart as being the leader of this magical reality that we're trying to embrace. And it isn't how many rituals have you done, how many spells have you done, how much time have you spent doing these defined magical acts, how long have you meditated. These are all the mind. These are all the details, the analysis. And, like, I'm not a witch only when I'm doing a ritual, or only when I'm doing a spell, or only when, I read a book about magic. I am a witch all the time. Every moment, every breath I take is about magic, because magic is about that connection to the universe, to the life force, to the other life forces that are around us, to the greater fabric of the harmony of things that are together that can't be understood in this independent and separate pieces, that can only be felt and embraced and accepted. And you can't get that through analysis. You can only get that through surrender and humility. We have all these weird ways that we define words, so if those words are trigger words for you, try to think about why, and try and think of what it is I'm talking about when I use those words, because that's, again, it's the feeling that's important, not the specifics. So it's a way of existing in the universe and in the world. And everyone is going to find a different way to interact with those energies, be it building something special, planting something beautiful, tending to a garden, going and helping feed the homeless. It's not, there's no one specific thing or specific sets of things. Being in a coven, being a solitaire, all these things are just, once again, the defining things. It doesn't mean that you're better than someone else, or lower than someone else, or less than someone else, because your circumstances are different than someone else. And to be yourself and accept who you are can sometimes be the greatest risk and the greatest courage a human being can muster, especially for those of us who are different. It doesn't matter how we're different, whether we're different in our sense of who we are, our sexual identity, our gender identity, our human identity, our, whatever the criteria is, our race identity, our cultural identity. None of these things, it's all the same thing of learning how to become the unique expression of life and energy and wonder that the universe is attempting to allow us to experience. And we have to let it happen. We have to be it. And for those of you who are in situations where you're being abused by either the people you live with or the people who are supposed to love you, whatever your circumstances, I know it takes a lot of courage to maintain and to be who you truly are and to find your path and path through all of that. And just know that the universe sees you. The universe accepts you. That was one of those moments with me when the tree comforted me when I was feeling so extremely despairing. And I wish everyone could feel exactly what it is I'm talking about. Sometimes these words they're approximations of intense and overwhelming and complete experiences of reality that don't have a language to express. And so a lot of times when you hear about things like this, it sounds like a platitude or, some superficial thing, but it's a language of approximation for a reason, because it's an experiential thing. It's not something that can be analyzed. It's not something that can be shared directly through language or symbols even. One of the reasons that we use ritual and symbols is because it can contain more in a single drawing or, color or whatever than all of the words that we can possibly find and use in order to express who we are. That being said, whoever you feel you are, remember that kindness and compassion are not negative and powerless and not a personality trait that's undesirable. It doesn't mean you are weak, because it probably takes a lot more strength to be kind to other people, especially if you're in a position where you're being abused by people. And this isn't the forgive, forget, turn the other cheek kind of stuff that I'm coming from at all. I think people need to take responsibility for their own actions, and I believe that people need to be held accountable for what they do, because without that, they're not going to learn. I believe you have a right to defend your sacred space, your you, and it's a balance. It's not one thing or the other. It's like a wholeness that we're looking for, striving for, at least I am. You can't do everything. There are going to be situations that you don't feel comfortable picking up. If you are, however, in a situation where you feel threatened, find someone to help you. And remember that you're important. I envision a future that's very different. I really don't think it's actually necessary for us to have conflict and terror and pain in order to appreciate beauty. I think that's another lie we've been told in order to make us accept the society that we currently have, pretty much everywhere, in different forms but the same. Power over other people, all that stuff. But as long as we hold to that, whether it's to put the pain we've gone through into perspective and to make it worth something or not, or just because we accept it, then it's going to be difficult for us to transform and change into something better. So, being able to be vulnerable and be real is power. To be able to connect with others is power. To be able to accept ourselves for where we're at and not feel we have to stay stuck just because we are where we are, that we can change and transform and become more, is power. Accepting ourselves for who we are and knowing that it's okay, and it's okay to change. We shouldn't hold ourselves to a higher standard than everyone else in the universe holds us to. I've told you that before. I'll tell you again. So if you can find joy and beauty, then you're going to find magic. Because that's what it is. It's what it's all about. And you don't have to have a higher purpose. You don't have to be the next Messiah, the great teacher, the great shaker, the mover. That's another trap. Every life we're in, we have to make that choice. And to live a life without purpose is also power. Because then you don't have anything artificial to prop you up. So it can be scary and uncomfortable and disconcerting. But really, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest purpose any one of us has is to have a good and happy life to the best of our ability and to enjoy where we're at and do what we can to improve what we find. Small, big, whatever it is, all of them are important. So I have no clue what I'm calling this. Meanderings of a madwoman. But hopefully this has been a serendipitous video for more than one of you as we come into this dark time, and give yourself leeway to make mistakes and know that it's okay. We'll all get there eventually. So I guess I'll leave it there before I get on to another tangent, and who knows what that would bring right now. But I hope you are all well as you can be, and I hope for you to experience beauty, love, joy, and compassion. So this has been Siofra's Magic Alcove, and I'm Siofra Bradigan. Blessed be.